call this meeting of the Mayor and Board of Alderpersons of the City of Bastrop to order. We ask that you stand and join us as we open in our traditional manner. We're going to open with a prayer. I'm going to ask Mr. Eddie Gordon to lead us in our invocation and Ms. Betty Olive to lead us in the pledge. Following the prayer and before the pledge, I'm going to ask if we have a moment of silence, and I'll speak to that in just a moment. Mr. Gordon.
Let's bow our heads. Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this opportunity to come together today. Pray that you would meet with us. Pray that you would help us in the decisions that need to be made here. Pray that you would help us to guide this community to where we need to be. Lord, we pray that you would keep your hands of protection about us. Keep us in your safety. In Jesus' name we ask. Amen.
Amen. Attention.
Before we do the pledge, Ms. Olive, I ask that you join me in recognition. We have a lot of outstanding citizens in our community, and God calls them to glory at different times. And for one outstanding person who passed this past week, Mr. Henry Watkins. Many of you probably know of his company, Globetrotter Cab Company, that has been in existence somewhere, I believe, more than 50 years. Mr. Watkins and his brother started that cab company. And even though there have been other companies that have come and gone, that company has been of long duration and much success. Mr. Watkins has been ill for a while. He drove cabs, he drove school buses, he was a businessman, had a washateria. His family has been a part of his business and have been strong supporters and outstanding citizens in this community. His funeral will be on Saturday, but I ask that you join me in a moment of silence recognizing Mr. Watkins, his contributions, and remembering his family. Thank you and amen. Solid.
Attention. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and you may be seated. We welcome you to the meeting of the Mayor and Board of Alderpersons of the City of Bastrop. Thank you for your presence and thank you for your support. Thank you for allowing us to serve you in the capacities that we serve. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll to determine the quorum?
Ms. Robinson?
Present.
Ms. Olive?
Present.
Mr. Gordon?
Present.
Mr. Lenore?
Present.
Mr. Hamlin?
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Ms. Goldman, and let the record show that the quorum is present and we are in order and taking care of business. A couple of announcements that I'd like to make. I thank the community for the support on behalf of the state and the citizens who evacuated to Bastrop last week and the week before. I personally thank the citizens for opening your arms and making them comfortable through an uncomfortable situation. There were a lot of lessons learned by the various agencies and individuals who were involved in making accommodations available for those folks who had to flee because of Gustav. I received a call a few moments ago from an individual from Department of Social Services who kind of coordinate the activities for folks who need to have sheltering. And as we speak, Calcasieu Parish is on the verge of being evacuated. We're not sure if they're going to come here or not, but we have a couple of facilities in our area that are used for that purpose, so we may be receiving visitors again. I know that two things. On the positive side, the business community was extremely happy about that. Kmart, Walmart, Burger King, Wendy's, Super One Foods, and many of the stores out there were happy. I talked to Ron Carter, who coordinates the sales tax, and he expects a significant positive blip on the sales tax screen. There were some other rumored issues that were negative. In talking to the chief of police, I don't know how many of them were real as far as complaints were concerned or not. But it's kind of a strain. It is a strain, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's economic, whether it's inconvenience. There is somewhat of a strain whenever you have more company in your house. When you have visitors coming to your house, it upsets the normal routine of things going on. But that's just the way things are. Our police department, the local police department, the sheriff's department, and the additional security and help that was provided to us, I think managed things extremely well. We received some press. The facility received some press, and I'm not sure how much of it was justified or how much of it was just blown out of proportion. I had about 20 people from the shelter who came to see me on Friday afternoon, and they were complaining about the conditions and the treatment that they were receiving, the food and all the rest of that, and we spoke to them, we meaning my chief of staff and I, we listened to them, and we committed to passing their complaints on to other folks. We had no responsibility in the Walmart shelter. That was a private contract between the individuals who own the building and the state of Louisiana. But just as I said before, when you have visitors in your house, you want to make them as comfortable as possible. So just to have a proactive attitude, we possibly will have visitors in our community again. We're not sure. I would hope that Ike would spin itself out in the Gulf, but that's not the normal routine of hurricanes. But if we can, if it does happen, let us prepare ourselves and accommodate as much as possible. Our law enforcement and other support agencies, our public works department, we will be doing whatever we can to accommodate them, and at the same time realize our first responsibilities to the citizens of this community. So we thank you for your support and thank you for the assistance that you gave during that time. We are taking some actions which are unusual for us in our normal routine, because there was so much debris, so many trees down, and so much stuff as a result of the winds and the rain. We are being deterred from our normal operation, and our public works department is busy trying to help clean up. And as you know, solid waste disposal and collection is not a responsibility of the city of Bastrop. We pay a half-cent sales tax to the police jury, and they're responsible for that. But at the same time, we have a larger obligation. So our crews, along with the National Guard, is it? Or Armed Reserve, the Guard Reserve, one of them, the National Guard, is exercising activities and going throughout the community, throughout the city of Bastrop, picking up limbs and debris that are on the side of the road or that's being put out there. Now, we know that there are folks who have limbs and stuff that was not generated by the storm that's going to put it out there, but we don't have any way of discriminating and determining what was debris, what was storm generated, and what was pruning, or what was just cleaned up from the yard. I'm saying that to let you know that's throwing us off from some of our regular stuff. Some grass is going to get higher than it normally is in the cemeteries, in the parks, on the right-of-way, because we're trying to clean up this debris. By cleaning up the debris, it keeps it from getting in our ditches, our storm open ditches, which would cause flooding in houses and communities and streets and things of that nature. So please realize what we're doing. We're not being negligent, but we're trying to give attention to the immediate situation. Let me move back to the agenda, and thank you for listening to those announcements. Item number 4 on our agenda is to approve minutes of previous meetings. We had a meeting on our regular meeting on August 14th. You've had a chance to review those minutes, and what is your pleasure?
I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the minutes from August 14th, 2008, our regular meeting.
Mr. Lenore makes a motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Olive seconds his motion. Is there any discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We had a special meeting on August 28th. You've had a chance to review those minutes, and what is your pleasure?
I make a motion we accept the minutes for a special meeting.
Ms. Robinson makes the motion. Mr. Lenore seconds her motion. Is there any discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed may say no, and the ayes have it. Mr. Hamlin, we're ready for the Finance Committee report.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt resolution 081251, bills and claims for the month of August.
Mr. Hamlin makes a motion to adopt that resolution.
I'll second his motion, Mayor.
Mr. Gordon seconds his motion. Is there any discussion? If you're in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If you oppose, say no, and the ayes have it. Thank you for that. Mr. Perrine, are you ready for a Main Street report?
Y'all, brief update on what's happening in the Main Street area historic district. This gets to be the time where we have a lot of different events for the holiday season. Believe it or not, we have to start already. So we're doing a lot of planning. We met yesterday with the downtown merchants to start planning for the open house. That'll be November 9th. As y'all know, that's one of the busiest days for the retailers in our area. So we've got some new things planned for that. Got some money from the Tourism Commission to promote the event. So we're hoping to bring a lot of people into Bastrop and do the holiday shopping, and hopefully they'll keep us in mind even after that. So we're looking forward to that. We also are planning our annual Which Way to Main Street, which is our trick-or-treat event around the square. We are going to do that on Friday. That is Halloween Day, the 31st, and that's from 4 to 6. That's the hours we've always done that. And we've worked with the police and sheriff to monitor the corners. We don't try to block the streets or anything, but just to help people across the street. Last year, I don't know if y'all remember, it just gets bigger and bigger every year. There was hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people out there. So
No man can number, huh?
yeah, it was huge. So I encourage y'all to. I think it's nice if y'all can represent City Hall on our corner up here. So hope that'll work out for y'all's calendars as well. We also got
Excuse me,
yes,
Mark, what's that day for trick or treat?
the 31st. It will. We always do it on Halloween Day unless it falls on a weekend. That's a Friday.
On, which way to Main Street, what day?
That is which way to Main Street is the trick or treat. Yes, sir. That's the 31st. The holiday open house is on the 9th. That was the other date I had given you. Which way to Main Street will be 4 to 6, but you know they come early.
That's their night.
Yeah. Also, since I spoke to y'all last, we were awarded our Main to Main grant. We got $5,000 to put on an event. Has to be put on in the month of November. All the Main Street towns, if they were awarded, it will be put on different events in November. And the idea was to get people to visit the different Main Street towns. Ours we'll be doing, I don't know if any of y'all were able to attend last year, Equinox Jazz Orchestra, which is a very well-known and jazz orchestra that people just love. And we were excited to be able to get them booked. We're going to do that we chose a Sunday, and we're going to do the jazz, and then we're going to do a brunch before the jazz, so that when people get out of church, they can come have brunch and then go over to the show. So we're excited about that. Hope to bring in a lot of people to that, because Equinox has a big following of people. Kind of like big music like Harry Connick Jr., Michael Bublé, things like that people really enjoy listening to.
What's the date on that?
That is getting all my dates mixed up. That is the third Sunday in November. And by the way, this Saturday is at the Rose is the Gene King Band, another event downtown, and that was sold out last month at the Rose. So I would encourage you to go visit and see that. They are really good, and they put on a nice show. Again, something else to do in town. A lot of times you'll hear there's not anything to do. We've got stuff every month, and there's always something kind of going on here.
Mark,
Yes, ma'am.
along that line, have you ever thought about, Gene King Band goes to Winsboro, and they have their version of the Opry.
That's what they do here.
Okay, so are they gonna come more often? Can you?
Well, it depends on how funding. The Rose would like to do that. Will be their second month, but that's more on their schedule, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly. They would like to do that.
Well, that's a very popular event down there.
It was well, like I said, sold out, and people loved it, and that's what they said. We got to have them back. So that's why I was saying I would encourage y'all to go if you didn't, because it was really good.
And besides that, most of those people are local
They are.
Bastrop
That's
people.
exactly right. Also, since we met last, I don't know if the mayor has told y'all we were you know, we had applied, we were working with the zoning, group out of Shreveport. Well, through them, we had been contacted about a smart growth grant, and, we worked with them and, applied, and we were awarded, one of the grants, for $75,000. And smart growth basically has helped, it will tie into the whole, plan that the, other firm is working on with us. And we're bringing some aspects of the downtown. We want to grow, housing, so we'll include the school in that. We want to grow the corridor coming into town, the retail aspect, getting to pull the people off of 425 and hopefully pull them in before they leave town or either as they're coming in. So it's a great program. We were fortunate to have gotten it. They called me, they were very excited to work with us. They really want us to be a pilot project because they know of the accomplishments we've had. So they're very excited, and they have, I think next month, a visit scheduled with us to see exactly what our needs are, and they've got people to come help with us and everything. So it's a big thing, and it could tie in nicely to the whole gateway enhancement project that we've got going on with Patrick Moore Planning. And they're working on, that project is underway. I think they've gotten Ms. Goldman some information here recently. She called me last week, this week as a matter of fact. So lots of different things going on right now that can hopefully improve the way the city's going. The old, I know we talk about this all the time, but the old school project, we did meet with the developer came, met with the school board, met with us. We went through the school. We had all the people from Breck Engineering, some architects and things like that. Basically, still just rolling along. It's just a lot to get that project going. It's just filling in a few more gaps that we're working on.
Have they let the bid yet?
No.
Oh, so Brett,
I can tell you it'll be, well, last they were talking 12 to 14 million.
12 to 14 what?
Million to rehab the school into affordable senior housing.
Sounds like you've been busy.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
72 units, 76?
76
76 units.
I heard today somebody said we were making a children's home. I said, no.
Just one more rumor.
There you go.
Well, it could be. We might be in our second childhood.
There you go. Well, I know it's so important that with that project get going, because y'all know there's such a need for senior housing, affordable senior housing in Bastrop. Our seniors are leaving probably more than you realize, and that's taking tax dollars with it and everything. So we're excited because we want to keep them here.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Green? Thank you so very much.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate you. Item number 7 on our agenda is a Morehouse Economic Development Update, but I'm merging item number 16 and item number 13 into one segment. Ms. King is going to come forth first, and then she's going to introduce a special guest to give us a briefing. We've been talking about this project, but she will segue into that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Hawkins, and it's always a pleasure to be here and address the city council and let you know what is happening with Morehouse Economic Development. And I have our announcement that we are nearing the end of our fiscal year, and at the end of each fiscal year we have an annual meeting where we review what the accomplishments for the year, plans for the next year, and we invite our membership, and you will all be receiving a notice, an invitation to that meeting. It will be we'll open the doors at 6:30 a.m. on October 1st. Our meeting will start at 7 a.m. That will give people time to get to work. We'll try to have everyone out by 8 o'clock. Last year we did deviate from that a little bit. We had a night meeting because we had a very special speaker that came, and we wanted to do that at night. But many of our members are business people, and they like to get out and get the business done early in the morning, and we like to accommodate the wishes of the people. But I hope that you can all attend. We do have a good program lined up for this year, and we're excited to present the accomplishments because we do have some to share. So I want go into that too much tonight because I do hope to see you all on October 1st. I thank the Bastrop, City of Bastrop for allowing us to use the municipal center. I'll give you all the information on this. It will be at the municipal center, and I appreciate the use of that building. The city generally sponsors us, and we appreciate that, and we appreciate all of the assistance that the City of Bastrop gives our organization and the active participation that we receive from the City of Bastrop. Now, getting on to some other business, do we want to do we want to take care of the add-on, the other business first before?
Which one is that?
Was that the enterprise zone?
Please. Well,
Okay.
yeah, we can do that now.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yes, ma'am?
If that was the other thing,
I'm
I
sorry.
was confused.
Okay,
Okay,
so let's
we'll-
put that at the end.
we'll put
But
that-
I need, let's, before we introduce our special guest, tell the body about the call that you got about our ditto billing.
Oh, okay. On Sunday afternoon, I got 2 calls from Energy, and with the anticipation that Hurricane Ike was coming into Louisiana, they were looking for a large building to evacuate their workers, because they had so many workers pulled into Louisiana, and with on the heels of this new hurricane, they needed to get them out into a safe area and then get them back. So Monday morning, promptly, we began to investigate whether or not the ditto building could be used for that purpose, because it is a nice 150,000 square foot building. But as many of you know, that it's in really bad shape. It hasn't been occupied since around 1997. The city, as I always like to remind everybody, that the city didn't acquire that building in 2005, and it was already in terrible condition when the city acquired it. It is a very nice building from the standpoint that when you look on the inside, the floors and all are clean, and it has value and it has potential to be put into something, but because of the state of the building and the fact that, and speaking with the heating and air people that were familiar with the building, we could not get the air conditioners to work. And so it drives home the need that we have, with what Mayor Hawkins and I have discussed on many occasions, the need to secure that building, to provide some basic infrastructural, like heating and air and water, and some basic things in that building so that it could be used for some purpose and then more effectively marketed, being in better condition and being able to show the building properly with the lights on and cleaned up. And I see a lot of potential there because, as you know, that was a laundry, and there's a huge gas supply to that building, so you could very efficiently provide gas generators and things that center, that could be manned as a center and have electricity in states of emergency. So I think that that's something that we'll continue to work on, that there is a need for that building, and that building has a very good value to it.
One of the things, my reason for having Ms. King to mention that to you, make you aware, and as you know, we've been actively marketing that building for years. It's an ongoing process. We constantly have inquiries, at least 2 or 3 a month. But this brings home the necessity and how important it is for us to secure the box. And by securing the box, we're talking about finding funds to fix the roof, fix the walls, start working toward getting the air conditioning in some kind of workable condition, whether it's for emergency use, as Energy was inquiring about, or whether it's for manufacturing purpose. That's going to have to be done one way or the other. That's going to have to be done one way or the other. So I'm initiating actions to try to, and we want to use this inquiry to the state to show them how potentially beneficial this building is and try to get funds from them to do what we need to do. It's gonna run at a minimum $1 million. At a minimum. When we've gotten quotes before, we were talking about doing more extensive work and it was $2 million in, but that was a metal roof. The walls were some kind of particle or metal walls, and they're deteriorating, and there are several issues involved. The air conditioning hasn't been used in 11, 12 years, so those are things that's going to have to be done, and that's the last, I think you've reminded me, that's the last large existing industrial building in the state of Louisiana.
I'm not sure about it being the last, but there are very few, and I've been told that by Louisiana Economic
Right.
Development, that there are very few, and we do get inquiries on that building regularly, and we get inquiries from out-of-state companies that market large buildings, and it's really the only large building we have, but it's certainly the largest building that I know of in northeast Louisiana that's available. And like I said, the slab and everything it looks clean when you go on the inside of it. It's a huge building. I've shown the building, and people are just taken back when they go in there because you don't realize how large that building is.
So that's just a bit of information. Wanted you to be aware of what's going on. Okay,
Mayor Hawkins,
Ms. Olive.
as I recall, we had a discussion about this a couple of months ago. The money that's available through the state, something like $600,000. Do you think that we may be able to access that money if we have a good enough reason?
We'll see. We will see. Since there's such a large surplus of money and money flowing everywhere in Baton Rouge, it should be there. We hope it will be.
Mayor Hawkins?
Ms. Robinson?
While we're on the subject, at the LMA meeting this year, there was a proposal that we could join with the rest of the state on their website. And at first I thought, well, but as they explained it, I think it's something that I would like for us to investigate that, because if somebody is in another state potentially looking for a place to go, and with all of the good things that we have to offer, and I know it's not like Lafayette, Baton Rouge, and some of the other places, but we are safer from the storms, and that might be something that we could push. But I really saw a potential there that would push us up to the top, and I'd like for someone to do. I don't have the expertise to do it. I don't do the internet that well, or
Okay.
computers, but I just would really like for us to investigate that, and
Okay.
this is something that we could work on along with what Kay's doing.
Okay, I think, and I'm not sure, but I think there's a link from the LMA's website to the city of Bastrop.com, as well as economic development. I think so. If not, we'll be sure that happens, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you.
We will definitely be sure that happens. Okay?
Yeah, and along that same line of thought, I can segue into this, that in many cases, we hear a lot about economic development. I mean, every time you turn on the television, you hear, and there's a different group, and everything has to do with economic development. But in looking at it from a practical standpoint, in the way this is structured, is that we generally have our state agencies that do things, and in particular, we have the Louisiana Economic Development. And if we were looking at this like we were going into battle, that would kind of be the generals. And then we have our regional groups that are kind of officers, and then our local organizations like our organization that I represent. We're kind of in the trenches. We're the infantry. We're getting the feedback of what's actually happening on the ground, and if we're lucky, we've got a good radio that's radioing that information back to our regional and state organizations. We are tied into a regional organization at the moment, which is the Northeast Louisiana Economic Alliance. That's Tana Trails Group, which she handles the renewal community and and she's been very effective in doing the mega site, and she handles a lot of the rural parishes. But when we look at the way people search for places to come to start a business, we don't see them actually, even though I maintain a website, they may not be likely to go on and search Morehouse Parish for a website. Realistically, we can say that since Monroe and the Monroe and West Monroe area, or the metropolitan area, that's Washita Parish, that many people are probably going to search that website, and they may not be as likely to go out and search every parish out in the area. And so, in keeping with that, we have heard the stories, and we've read the stories in the newspaper about a new regional economic development partnership that would tie this parish into the Monroe metropolitan area, and we're kind of right on the line. We're still agricultural, and we're still rural in some ways, but we're more industrialized than some of our rural neighbors. So we kind of have that mixed need to participate possibly in some more rural initiatives and some more metropolitan type initiatives. And so, that being said, we have a guest here, Mr. Todd Perry, who is here representing the North Louisiana Economic Partnership. He's been working with some of our citizens like Elton Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy could not be here tonight because of some of the problems with flooding, but Mr. Perry has come, and I would like to at this time turn the podium, I guess, the podium over to Mr. Perry and let him tell us a little bit about this partnership. Thank you. Oh,
Ms.
wait.
King, before you leave, one question. What time is that activity, October the 1st, at the Minister Center?
It'll start, we'll open the doors at 6:30 a.m., but we won't start our meeting until 7. You know, we generally serve some light breakfast items, so we'll give people a little bit of time to socialize, and then we'll start our meeting. And like I said, I'll be getting that information to you, and put it in the paper also so that people can come.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Perry. Thank you for being here.
Honorable Mayor, honorable members of the City Council, thank you for allowing me to come in and visit with you today. It's very much appreciated. The first thing I'd like to say is I want to thank Kay and Mayor Hawkins because they've been in this thing since the beginning. This thing's been going on for about a year and a half. I've got some materials. This is more of an update. I've got some materials I'd like to share with you if I could approach and pass out.
Are you a lawyer? Are you
I am on TV.
Are you a lawyer?
On TV.
On TV, okay. When you said
I'm not.
When you said may I approach the bench, I thought you were a lawyer.
I'm actually a geologist. I'm a principal, and again, my name's Todd Perry. I'm a principal in the firm of PPM Consultants. We do environmental work. I've got offices throughout the Southeast, and I like to look at different areas and see what's going on. And obviously, I'm from here. These are my parts. This is where PPM, my firm, started from. We have 140 employees. We've grown that from when we started in 1994, 6 of us. So this is important to me because this is home. On that note, if you get a police report about a bald-headed guy trying to get into the courthouse earlier, that was me. All the doors are locked, so you're okay. Courthouse is safe tonight, so we're in good shape.
You went to the courthouse?
I did go to the courthouse. Kate, tell me where to go.
That's all right. As long as you were bringing in the courthouse, it's okay.
It's tight. It's locked up. You can't get in. And if I could have got in, I'm not sure what would have happened. This process started, regional economic development process started about a year and a half ago. The way it came out was we knew that what we were doing wasn't working. We weren't being effective. We weren't being effective in Monroe. We weren't being effective in Ruston, et cetera. Now, that's not saying we didn't have some successes and we weren't trying hard. But there's a better way. I'm a big believer in working smart. You need to work hard too, but the smarter you work, the more successful you'll be. So on that note, Louisiana Economic Development, Washita Economic Development, and others brought in a firm, Jay Garner, out of South Carolina, to come in and study this area and to determine what are our problems, what are our issues. And the one thing identified came as no surprise to anyone. we're fractured. We don't behave like a team. We don't behave like a region. We behave like each individual piece. Even in the city of Monroe, it's multiple pieces. That's not productive to working together. When a business looks at this area, they don't just see Bastrop. They don't just see Morehouse Parish. They see the region because, quite frankly, if you look at your largest employer, Bastrop, people come from all over to work at that plant. Same thing in Washita Parish. In my firm, I've got 40 of my employees. I'm 140 in Monroe. They come from 6 different parishes. So it really is a regional approach. That's the way economic development has morphed into, and that's where we need to be today. So the study was done. If you look at this page right here, this will give you a summary of where we've been. It starts all the way in 2006, the need to stimulate the economy in North Louisiana and create jobs. And you can follow that. I'm a private business person. I'm a volunteer. But this is important to me, again, because this is home. And I've enjoyed working with this. And I'm very confident at the end of my presentation that you'll agree with me, we're on the right track. Basically, we did this study in 2007. We brought in groups. We've interviewed fundraisers. We interviewed CEO search firms. We created an interim board. And basically what we did was we pulled together 5 parishes. We initially pulled together Richland, Morehouse, Washita, Union, and Lincoln. Richland Parish decided early on that maybe they need to stick with what they were doing with Tana's group, it's a good group, and what they were doing at the mega site. So we went down to 4 parishes. Jackson Parish joined our cause. So the 5 parishes in the region are Jackson Parish, Lincoln Parish, Union Parish, Morehouse Parish, and Washita Parish. That's the region. We've been contacted by parishes east, south, southwest, northwest. This region will grow. In Baton Rouge, there are 12 parishes that make up their regional economic development engine. In Alexandria, there are 13 parishes that make up their economic development engine. Now, this economic development engine isn't going to take the place of what you're doing locally. What it's going to do is it's going to be a tool to you better take the assets and the strengths that you have in your area, profile those, get them out, attract businesses, and when you have somebody that's the right fit for the building you were discussing earlier, or there might be something in Morehouse Parish, an industrial park, or a plat of land that fits, this is the group that's going to be able to identify it, get them in, and then hand them over to the appropriate parish, city, or economic developer to bring them home. This brings it all together, sews it up in a package. Now, as we go through this, we create an interim board to basically oversee what we're doing. The interim board has a representative from each parish. For Morehouse Parish, the representative is Elton Kennedy. From Washita Parish, the representative is James Moore. From Lincoln Parish, the representative is James Davison. From Jackson Parish, the representative is Randy Ewing. And from Union Parish, the representative is Glenn Post. That's a good group of men that have been very successful, and they have holdings all over, you could really say all over the world, and they understand what they're looking for when it comes to economic development. So what this interim board was tasked to do was to raise funds for this organization, to get it kicked off, and to find a CEO that could lead this organization, because that's going to be the key hire. If we bring the right individual in to run this effort, they're probably not from around here. They're going to be new to us, but they're going to have a track record. They're going to know what companies are looking for when they want to locate or expand, and they're going to come in and service well. That's where we're at right now. The fundraising campaign is underway. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. We're having a lot of success there. The CEO search is underway, and I'm going to talk about that. These 2 efforts, once they're culminated, and I suspect they'll be done at the end of October, 1st November, then this organization will develop the next piece in your binder, which is the proposed board structure. I'd like to review that for just a second. Again, thank you for letting me come in and do this. The way this is going to work is you'll have representatives, private business representatives, from each parish, 5 that sit on a board, one-year terms, and they can serve 5 consecutive terms. And I'm sorry, that's 2 consecutive terms. It's a 5-year terms that rotate, so they can serve on there. Now, those representatives chosen, that's the governing board. The community technical colleges, VOTEX, will work with those on the governing board. From the governing board, you'll pick 2 representatives. The 2 representatives from the Morehouse board will be chosen by the 4 other parishes. The 2 representatives from Washita Parish will be chosen from the 4 other parishes. We think that's going to help bring things together. We can pick people that want to work together, not just the the favorites of any particular parish. We want people that want to roll up their sleeves, get to work, and make this thing happen. They're going to be on the executive board. The 4 universities, ULM, Louisiana Tech, Grambling, will have interface with that board, along with the CEO, and that's where the parishes and the city councils and the mayors will sit working with that executive board on knowing what's coming. There'll be quarterly meetings, quarterly updates, to where they can have a feel for what's happening with economic development in the region. We think this board structure is a little bit clever, a little bit different, because again, you're taking 5 representatives from each parish, then the other 4 parishes, you're picking 2 representatives out of the 5 to serve on the executive board, and we think that's going to make a very dynamic situation and will help ensure the success of this organization. And it's going to take everybody working together. Now I'd like to get into some details of what we're doing. You go to this piece, which is the staple piece on the right-hand side of your packet. This is our program of work. We've gone there from 2009 to 2011. What we're looking to do is we're looking to have a $1 million budget, $1 million budget a year over 3 years. It's a $3 million budget. If you look on page 1, you'll see our interim board. If you go to the second page, you'll see the goals. And we talk about the needs, why we need this, what the purpose of it is. But the goals are to create, within the next 3 years, 1,000 to 1,500 new high-quality jobs. It doesn't matter if they're in Morehouse Parish, Union Parish, wherever it is in the region, even Richland Parish, because we'll all benefit where these businesses locate and expand in. $30 to $45 million in new payroll, $450 million in new capital investments. Now, certainly, I hope that every parish sees, and I expect every parish will see, huge benefits from doing this. Enjoy growth, enjoy new jobs, enjoy capital expansion. That's our goal. That's the mission. That's what this thing is focused on. Pure growth. The thing I like, I'm an existing business. And to me, when you can focus on creating a climate to where new businesses want to come and flourish, that means your existing businesses are going to ride that tide too. They're going to float better also. So with this organization, if it's successful and it does what we plan it to do, I believe not only will new businesses come and locate, but our existing businesses will be more secure, stable, and they'll grow too. So I'm very excited about this effort. As you go through this package, and I won't go into many more details on this, we've got basically the Northeast economic data and trends. Then I get into the program overview on the 5th page, and I talk about how we're going to market the organization, how we're going to recruit new businesses, how we're going to handle special project, where you might need some road help, where you might need some infrastructure help, how we're going to pull that off. And then behind that, I take each one of these buckets and I expand on them a little bit more so you can see in detail exactly what this plan is and how we thought this out. I think you'll find it to be pretty thorough. If you go to, I believe, the 8th page, you'll see a page that has a pie chart. This is a $3 million budget over 3 years. Now, if this is successful, this entity will continue to grow and flourish along with existing businesses. It'll have more capital, and it'll have more things it can do for the parishes that are in the region. But if you look at it, you'll see how we kind of broke out marketing, new business recruitment, administration, special projects, basically our budget of where we're spending that $1 million. And help you better understand where the money's going. That's very important. Behind that is investment levels, anything from $2,500 a year over 3 years to $100,000 a year over 3 years. Our biggest investors so far, we've got a number of banks and companies that have hit at $25,000 a year. We appreciate that. The city of Monroe has agreed to do $100,000 a year. On that note, our basic guide to a city is 50 cents a person would be a recommended investment. However, we just want you in the game. Whatever you might have to help, we're going to take that support and we're going to go forward with it. But we want Bastrop and Morehouse Parish in this. Behind that is the economic development scorecard. Basically, this will be generated on an annual basis so you can see what this effort's doing and how to score it. You're going to see if it's really being effective and how effective has it been. And everything I do, I like to undersell and over-deliver. So my plans are certainly to beat expectations on that report card so people are very enthused and we see a lot of growth in our 5-parish region and throughout our area. That's the package. Now let me give you some more details on the fundraising.
Can I, and you're probably going to touch on this, but can we refer to the 3-year campaign goal in the pie chart?
Sure.
And I think it's important that we point out to the Board of Alderpersons that the $3 million that you're talking about, those contributions, if you look at the top pie chart, you're projecting 60% of the funds coming from the private sector.
That's correct.
The business community buying into this to help support it, and then 40% coming from the public sector, from the public bodies. And he mentioned the 50 cent, because originally the amount that you guys were projecting was more than that per person per parish.
Correct. Correct.
Initially, the discussion was $2 per person per body, $2 per parish, per person in the parish or whatever. So it's interesting. Evidently, you're being successful in raising funds, and you've reduced the ask coming from public sector.
That's correct, Mayor. and
That's significant.
That's exactly where I'm going. In fact, it's even better than that. I think at the end of the day, you'll see 70% of the funding coming from private business and 30% of the funding coming from the public sector. Very important for the public sector to have a place to be involved on that executive board, have input, be updated,
And
support, have some support in the game. But it's very important for our private businesses to step up and lead this effort. That's why I'm involved. And again, I think that I appreciate you taking me back there, Mayor, because that's a very important point I missed. On the fundraising campaign that the Mayor was talking about, we engaged that in the 1st of August. And what we did was, in the months of March, April, and May, we went around, did interviews. We did almost 100 interviews throughout the 5-parish region with business leaders, with some cities and select parishes too, in fact, all 5 parishes, and got a feel for what the expectations were, where we could succeed, what the traps were. Had some great response from that, and we also felt out what level of giving would a company be willing to give. We realized once we did that assessment, we could fund this effort successfully. So beginning August 1st, we went back and visited all those that we met with during the assessment phase and got them to go ahead and make the hard commitments. We're in the process of doing that. That should be finished at the end of September. At that point in time, we're going to kick off our all hands on deck, everybody's going to know about it, campaign to finish it off. To date, we've met with 40 of the top public and private targets that we had identified during the assessment. We've got commitments for right at $500,000 so far, so half our budget has been met from the initial 40. We've got, and that's from 17 of the companies, 17 of the 40. We've got another 63 companies pending for another $500,000. So I feel very confident we're going to make our fundraising go pretty easy. The more capital we can get in this, the more we can do quickly. So the fundraising campaign, the capital campaign, if you will, is being very successful. It's off and running, great response. There's a real momentum. There's a real appetite. People are excited. People want this, and I'm glad it's coming. Now, so that's off the races. The capital campaign should be wrapped up by the end of October, 1st of November. That brings me to my next phase, the CEO search. That piece is the most important piece because the CEO we bring into the area, whomever they may be, if we don't have one that's at the top of their game and really knows how to do this, then all my time, all the time of all the volunteers, all the hard work we've done is for naught. That's the most important hire. That's where their board is really going to show their strength by helping us identify that person. We contract with a group. Let me back up 1 second. On the fundraising side, there's a company out of Ohio called RDG Partnership that's came in and helped us. We've had professional help there. They're doing a very good job for us. So I wanted to mention them. On the CEO search side, we've got a company out of Washington, D.C. called Jorgensen Consultants. This is their profession. They've got a database of about 20,000 economic development professionals worldwide that they know who they are, where they're at, and what they're doing. So they've got a very extensive database. They came in and began to work with us in mid-July. We brought them by, and they met with the 5 parishes, and they got a feel for feedback from businesses, the business community, and the public sector of what they're looking for in a CEO. We developed a job description, and we've been out since basically Labor Day advertising this job for the region. We've got tremendous feedback. We've had almost 100 applicants come in that have been identified and have actually sent their resumes in to be considered for the position. We've gone through about half those. We've qualified 8. So I have about 50 applicants, we believe 8 of them are qualified to go the next step. We're going to complete the other 50 over the next 2 weeks. At the end of this month, 1st of October, we're going to basically have a slate of 6 candidates to consider. We're going to bring them into the area. We're going to take them around. We're going to tour them. We're going to let the interim board interview them. We're going to let other key people have interaction with them. And then we're going to try to determine who we're going to bring on as a CEO. We hope to do that by mid to late October. Hopefully they'll accept our offer. And then probably the mid-November, possibly the end of November, they'll be on board. So in December, we'll be getting everything organized. And January 1st, 2009, this effort will be off and running. So things are moving very quickly. We've had a lot of success. We want to keep that momentum up. We want to complete our fundraising campaign. We want to hire the right CEO. And then we want to bring some real success to this region, some real growth, real jobs, and real expansion.
One of the things that in discussions that we've been involved in being headhunters and looking for CEOs is very, very important, and people having expertise is important. But we had a discussion, and I think you were involved in it, and my comment was having a person who has the expertise and having the competence is very, very important. But having somebody that has compatibility to us in this region, in our culture, having somebody coming from somewhere else and they know everything in the world about economic development and building coalitions and all that. So one of the tasks that we gave to the group as they went through the search process and making short lists is to be sure, and this is being redundant, be sure that that person fits. If they don't understand us and they can't communicate with us and they can't adapt to our way of living and see our environment, they again would not be beneficial to us.
And Mayor, I appreciate you sharing that, because that's one of the things we're looking for. Basically, the 8 applicants that have made the cut that we're taking a strong look at so far, they're from the South or from the Midwest with the agricultural ties that can understand our region. We've had some from the Northeast, didn't really see anything there. We like, again, the right person shows up, we're going to go with them. The West Coast, we've had applicants from all over the United States, but so far it's been predominantly the South and then some from the Midwest. I think will fit, Mayor, with what you're speaking to. So on that, I'd like to go on record of briefing the City Council and the Mayor of where we're at currently. I'd like, as the city goes into its budgeting process and looks into 2009, 10, 11, you guys consider some level of funding. I'll stand ready for any questions you have, and I'll be here for as long as you like. So, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you for that presentation. At this time, we open to both of all the persons. If you have questions for Mr.
I do.
Ms.
Yes,
Olive?
ma'am.
Why does your data stop at 2006? Why doesn't it include 2007?
We couldn't collect that. It's out there. Some of the parishes have it, some don't. And we basically, this was put together in March, the data, and it wasn't available for 2007 at that point in time. And maybe now we can update it as soon as that's available.
Okay. What did you find in terms of per capita income on a national level? I noticed all of these parishes are grouped together, and you have $24,414. How does that pair with the national level per capita income? Just a little bit below?
I can't speak to that. I'm local, so to me, you know, it's going to feel about right to me. That'd be a question for RDG out of Ohio as they came in and put that together. I do think it's below, but I don't think it's significantly below.
Okay.
Any other questions? We really appreciate this update. I think we have a better grasp of what's going on and understanding who the players are and what all the activities are about. But thank you very much for coming.
Thank y'all very much.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Item number 8 is ordinance number 084179, an ordinance setting the franchise fee to be paid by those entities providing cable or video services to the city of Bastrop. Mr. Lawrence, you're probably going to need to come to the mic for a while on several of these items, I believe.
Mr. Mayor and council members, you may recall that this was an ordinance that was introduced, I believe, last time. And the reason for the introduction is because of a change in state law that regards the regulation of local governments and municipalities granting franchise rights to providers of cable television service and other types of media services. As a result of the change in legislation, It was recommended primarily at the Louisiana Municipal Association Conference that municipalities adopt a series of ordinances. The first one, which appears on the agenda, is item number 8, would be to authorize the city of Bastrop to be able to charge a franchise fee for franchisees that are granted the right or that obtain the right from the state to come into our city and to provide franchise services. The reason why this is important is because if you do not have this ordinance in place already to authorize the charging of the fee, and the company comes in and sets up shop, you cannot come back later and charge the fee. So the fee has to be in place now, according to the way that the legislation is written, so that if you have future activity where additional companies and providers that want to provide cable franchise services come to town, you will be able to impose the fee on them for the use of the city's infrastructure and right-of-ways and other things for which the city ought to receive some type of compensation.
Help me remember, I think new legislation almost allows, not free will, but open access. Almost anybody can come in and set up a cable company if they want to right now, basically.
And I think that's probably the most accurate way to describe it, because heretofore, if someone wanted to sell cable franchise services in the city, they had to come to the city and get permission to do that. Now that permission is going to lie, I believe, with the Secretary of State
and
with state agencies, and also there's not really a cap. There's not really an indication where only one company or a set group of companies will have that right. It's almost as though there's an unlimited number of providers that can come and take advantage of it. So the city, this is one ordinance that is designed for the city to be able to control and also inure some benefit from this type of new activity that comes into the city and uses its right-of-ways and uses its infrastructure. And again, if you don't enact this ordinance and the state authorizes another provider to come into town, you won't be able to charge a franchise fee. So that's the necessity of this particular ordinance.
Again, realizing that we've lost our control in determining who comes in and wants to set up lines and dig up our rights of way, because that's going to be granted by the state.
That's correct.
We've lost that. But if we pass this ordinance, at least if the state grants ABC company to come in and set up a cable company, at least we will be able to charge a franchise fee on a negotiated contract.
That's correct.
With that entity.
That's right.
The market here, unless somebody comes in and underprices the existing company, the market here isn't that great, but the possibility is there. As I appreciate it, in Washington Parish, there are several cable companies, a couple of cable companies,
yes,
providers, but that market is larger.
That's right.
But in our area, it might not happen, but in case it does. Mr. Hamlin, I believe you were about to say something.
My question was, it's based on population any kind of way, on the number that
No,
can
sir.
come in?
No, sir, and that's a very good question, and the answer is no. I mean, the state can authorize 10 new providers to come in here tomorrow if it wanted to.
If a provider thought that it had opportunity,
That's right.
and saw this as fertile ground, and they wanted to come in and start setting up the physical equipment that was necessary to produce cable services, they wanted to make that investment. They applied. They met whatever criteria the Secretary of State had. They could come in and start doing whatever they did. But by passing this legislation, they at least would have to negotiate with us for a fee to use our public rights of way.
That's right.
Okay. We open for discussion and/or action.
You want a motion to adopt?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion of adopt ordinance number 08-4179.
Mr. Hamlin makes that motion.
I second it.
Ms. Robinson seconds his motion. Is there any other discussion? If you're in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, say no. And I think the ayes have it. Mr. Lawrence, thank you.
The next item is ordinance number 08-4180. It's related to the matter that we just passed. This ordinance, 4180, deals with governmental access to programming and financial support for it. Again, because of the change in legislation, it is important for us to enact this ordinance so that we can basically continue having governmental access for public programming in connection with any other new provider that comes to town and says they want to operate cable or media services. We will have a right to say, okay, if you do that, we have to have a right to access your system for governmental access, just like this council meeting, for example. And in addition to that, this ordinance, in accordance with state law, authorizes a fee. I think it is equivalent to 0.5% to fund the cost that is associated with government providing public governmental access over the media airwaves that are involved in providing the service. So again, this is a second separate ordinance dealing with the same change in legislation, and this time it deals with guaranteeing governmental access to the whatever new cable providers or whatever new cable services come to town, and to be able to take advantage of a funding mechanism for providing that access.
This is something called PEG legislation, which is part of a package of federal stuff that happened several years ago. When we decided as a board that we wanted our public to be aware, we used public monies to buy the cameras, buy all of the equipment that you see that's used in generating the images and sending out the signal. Suddenlink, which is our local cable provider, voluntarily gave us some assistance in running fiber optic lines and giving us access to Channel 7. Most cable networks in most cities have a public access channel, which is set aside for public business, be it educational, governmental services. They do school stuff, government stuff and all. But Suddenlink didn't want to set aside a separate channel. They said, but you can have access, and Channel 7 is a public access channel, but since nobody was using it, I think Cherry Ridge Baptist Church uses it, and we're using it, but since nobody else was using it, they say, okay, you can use Channel 7 at any time except for a specific block, I think, that the church services are broadcast. What this legislation does is it requires any other future cable company to set aside and provide funds for us to deliver services, the school system, governmental entities, and what have you. So
Right.
this is securing that and making and legislating that for future purposes, right?
That's correct. And if you don't do this, you will not be able to guarantee those things.
If you feel comfortable with this, we need action on this as well.
Mayor, I make a motion, we adopt ordinance 084180.
Mr. Gordon makes that motion.
I'll second.
It's jointly seconded by Ms. Olive and Mr. Lenore. Is there any other discussion?
Mayor Hawkins,
Mr. Gordon.
I'd like to thank Mr. Lawrence for acting so quickly on these past two ordinances. Shortly after they were introduced in the LMA meeting by Jerry Jones. He had them ready basically the next day, and I want to let him know I appreciate his expedited efforts in those matters.
Well, I'll tell you, in light of the fact that we learned that if you don't do this before somebody shows up, you know, that made it be a priority, so that whoever does show up from this date forward, they got to deal with it. So,
They stressed that at the meeting.
I'm sorry, Ms. Gordon, Ms. Robinson?
I
yes?
just said they stressed that at the meeting, that we needed to act as quickly as we could.
Very good. Any other discussion? If you're in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance number 084181.
yes, sir, that's, I think, item number 10 on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
This is the last of 3 ordinances related to this subject regarding the providing of cable television or media services in the city and the franchise right to do so. One of the things that there was a recognition of is that with the adoption of this new legislation by the state, there was no way to actually regulate the actual day-to-day activities that would be associated with a new entity that comes to town, that decides to excavate right-of-ways, that decides to provide certain kinds of services. In other words, the state can approve your coming to town to do these things, but the state would not be here to watch over it, to see to it that it's done right, or to see that whatever ends up here is done properly. And so this last ordinance is intended to require that a prospective cable provider must come and approach the city and basically provide certain information to us, and provide certain assurances to us before they can just start digging and before they can just start doing what it is that they do. In other words, the state can authorize them to come and to set up shop, but for them to dig up public right-of-ways and to do other things that are associated with actual installation, the city has a right to regulate that activity and to be sure that you have workers' comp insurance on your workers, to be sure that you have general liability insurance if you do something wrong and it causes harm to the city or to property owners, and to be able to generally regulate the activities that are engaged in. So that's what this ordinance is designed to do. And again, if you don't have it in place before somebody shows up, you can't regulate it. So it's a matter of being proactive and enacting it before something happens.
Simply put, they gotta apply for a permit.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Mayor Hope,
Mr. Gordon.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 084181.
Mr. Gordon makes a motion.
Second.
Mr. Lenore seconds this motion. Is there any discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Being none, the ordinance is adopted. And we're down to 11.
It seems like number 11 was skipped over at the last meeting. Wasn't there a request to have someone come to speak to the council? I may be wrong about that. That's my recollection.
Did we need more information on the signage ordinance? I can't remember either. Are we ready to take action on it then?
Was our packet,
I'm sorry?
what was in our packet, wasn't it, the explanation for it?
If you will recall, this was a request from the Historic District.
Number 11?
Yes, for the city to authorize a change to the code of ordinances that will allow for, I believe, an increase in the size of signage that is used in the Historic District, mainly to allow signs to have a size of 144 square inches of sign surface per foot for each foot of lot frontage, meaning for businesses that operate within the Historic District and that face out onto a public street or public right-of-way. The thought is the current size limitations on signs was not sufficient. There needed to be an increase, and now this ordinance allows the maximum size of a sign to be up to 144 square inches of sign surface for every foot of frontage that your business has or owns fronting out on the public right-of-way. So that is the request of the Historic District.
Mr. Hamlin, did you have any input on this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I was the one kept putting this off, and I just want to read one thing for everybody. It's section 11.5-32 penalties. Any owner, agent, lessee, or other person acting for or in conjunction with him who shall violate the Bastrop Historic District ordinance or law or rule, I guess it should be law, regulation or decision of the commission shall be fined not less than $100, nor more than $500 for each infraction, each day that a violation continues shall constitute a separate infraction. That's all I want them to understand. Make them aware of.
Making us aware of the penalties that are attached to this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was all I wanted to just,
Okay.
they're fine with it. It's fine with me.
Any discussion? Is there action on this ordinance? Ordinance number 084182.
I make a motion that we accept this ordinance.
Ms. Robinson makes the motion to adopt this ordinance.
I'll
Is-
second.
Ms. Olive seconds her motion. Is there any discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If you oppose, say no, and the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 12 is a discussion of the personnel policy. We distributed that document to you for your review and to be marked up. And I think it has been requested and agreed that we will have a special session to work specifically on this at some later time. And we will be contacting you as to a convenient period of time for action, discussion, and a working session in dealing with the personnel policy. We included item number 13 in the previous situation, and item number 14 is to appoint we needed one more member to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the name that has been submitted and is recommended is Marvin Moore, who lives in District A, to be added to to be appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd appreciate a motion accepting this appointment.
Make a motion.
Mr. Hamlin does.
I'll second.
Ms. Olive seconds his motion. If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed should say no, and the ayes have it. Liquor licenses, Chief Walker? Thank you very much. Let me skip down to citizens' comments. Is there a citizen who'd like to comment to this mayor and board of alderpersons? If you would like to, would you come forth, identify yourself, and you may speak.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. My name is Charles Henry Bradford, citizen of Bastrop. I'm before you on August 14th concerning the Soul Food Festival here in the city of Bastrop. And Mr. Lawrence said that there was a way that, possibility that you could co-sponsor. I'm asking tonight for a reconsideration of the city council, looking at, the co-sponsor. I think he was gonna get back with the city council, and I haven't heard from anyone.
Okay.
That's why I'm here tonight. And I just want to know your position. Before you state your position, I think I ought to narrow this down. We're doing pretty good. I'm doing following the local paper. It seems to be successful. And we do need help. I mean, it's good to bring things to the city. I'd like to say maybe one day we can co-sponsor with Main Street. We can get the west side of town involved in the city. Everybody needs to be involved in the city activities. And with saying that, it simply boils down to this. We are in need of maybe 30 tables, I know the city have, and maybe 300 chairs for our citizens that will come that day and participate with us. I know monetary contributions kind of tight, money tight for everyone, and it's our first annual event. We'd like to see how it's gonna go, and we're asking for the city support somewhere, somehow to help us, because it's good for the city. I think it's a Christian event. A lot of churches, don't really find a lot of the paper, but a lot of young people and praise teams, they all signed up and registered in this. I think it would be just wonderful for the city name to appear somewhere, say, well, we made an effort to make this a successful event. Let's not knock us out. We have the sheriff department support. They're gonna furnish officers. I think we have, sheriff's department, and several local merchants. I won't call them out. Well, State Representative Sam Little, he gave us some support. And you look at the overall picture, I think it's all our responsibility as elected officials and people that want to get involved in the community to do positive things. I think the city have an obligation to do something. I know I can't come here and say, give me a ball of money, but I can say this is the first time it may be successful. And I think the city could help us, at least with tables and chairs. And if possible, a patrol officer, they're gonna be on duty anyway, if they can just, don't park down on Washington Street, just park up by the courthouse. If they only got the car, just the visibility will make people kind of control themselves. And I think we'll work hard, the committee will work hard, and we're almost there. And I think that's the biggest expense we got left, is the tables and chairs. And I think, like I say, some of the guests, Reverend Neil Armstrong, and some of the pastors in the community, we're looking forward for this. I think it'll be a joyful time. And I think it'll boost the spirit of Bastrop, also progress it, you know. I think that's what we stand for, and I think we should participate as a city.
Okay, members of the Board of Alderpersons, you've heard the request.
I'm sorry, Mayor, you said something?
No. I was asking for discussion.
How many tables and chairs are you wanting?
About 300 chairs and 30 tables. And we would supply the manpower for living. We don't have to bring on anyone else. You know, I'll get some people that are working with the committee to pick them up wherever designated spot you would like, and be responsible for return.
This is gonna be on the courthouse square,
Yes, ma'am.
and who's going to provide, the patrols, the law enforcement?
Yeah, the law enforcement, sheriff's department, the reserve, they have been approved to supply the security.
How many officers is that?
I didn't know, Mike said whatever we would need, he didn't say exactly the number, he said he would be there, you know, his people would be there at the sheriff's department. They are that's an in-kind contribution to the event.
I hesitate, and Mr. Lawrence, I'm gonna call on you because we're gonna need this direction. The Board of Alderpersons will need directions. We need activities. Tourism committee is always looking for activities. Main Street is always doing things. Before we can consider whether or not to let city equipment be used for a private, non-governmental entity, I'm responsible to be sure that you know what the legal positions are with what we can and can't do before we can talk about other pieces of it. And I might say this, we have very few folding chairs in the city of Bastrop, and the chairs that we do have are the kind that are in the municipal center, the leather-like chairs that are indoor chairs. So, but before we can even talk about that, we need to know, can we legally loan out to a non-governmental entity, and is there the potential of establishing precedents if we do that? I think this board needs to be aware of those things before we talk about it. Yes, sir, please.
You know, the last discussion dealt with the city spending money, actually providing money, providing a grant or financial sponsorship. And quite frankly, the law does not distinguish between what type of assets that you're talking about, whether it is cash or hard assets, whether you are allowing or whether you are giving something or allowing something that is public property to be used. The answer is really the same. It has to be a city-sponsored project in much the same way that the city of Monroe has ownership of the Delta Fest, and there are others who are involved in that, but it is a city event. It has to be a city event in order for you to be able to use city assets, whether that's cash or whatever. And because it goes through the same test. And you have to know that the legislative auditor from time to time will look and will see what it is that you've done. And when that happens, you have to be able to justify it. And if you don't, you're in trouble. Now, I can't speak for the other public entities that are making in-kind contributions and providing what it is that they are providing. I'm just going to tell you what the rule is. If you are a public entity and you have taxpayer property, you cannot gratuitously give that or provide that to anybody. Now, if the city takes ownership of the event, no problem. But if it's not a city event, well then again, you have the same problem that you would have in responding to the request to provide direct financial support.
We open for discussion.
Excuse me, Mayor, let me clear something too. And my request was an in-kind co-sponsorship. I think we established, like we established last meet, it would have to be done on a co-sponsorship position, you know, to make it legal.
And Mr. Bradford did talk to me, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, we saw each other, and he was asking me these questions, and I did tell him what it is that I'm saying now, and that is the city this would have to be a city event, or the city would have to have ownership of this event, where it would in fact be a city or Bastrop event in which others are involved in order for the test, in order for you to pass the test on whether or not you can use cash or any other assets for this. Otherwise, there has to be a price for using city assets. Just like when you're talking about the municipal center or anything else, there has to be a price. So.
In our position, we don't have a problem with the city being a part of it because I think it'd be good, you know, this event is not a profit event, it'd be good. We're just trying to pull the people together and promote the ministry and reach our people in our community.
Mr. Lenore?
I was about to say, I can understand where you're coming from with that. You spoke about it as being an asset to the community and all this thing, but you also have to understand our position as city officials. I'm concerned about, not so much about you with the tables or if we become a part of this action being what's next. You almost can't win. Who the fellas want to have a rabbit catching contest or something like that, then we are obligated because we did it for you. I just use that for an example, but everything that comes up that can always point back to that. My consensus on that, I'd be reluctant to do it for anyone because I may have to wind up doing it for everyone. Are you following?
I'm following you, Mr. Lenore, and I can respect your position, but Oak Grove City having a Jesse James Fest, and I'm sure the city participating with it. I mean, if a rabbit, if somebody want to do something positive, let's do it. It never hurt to do something, as long as it's positive. I can stand for the rabbit. If the rabbit catches positive, let's do the rabbit.
I have a question.
Ms. Robinson?
Who is going to take care of the traffic? The sheriff's department? Are you going to hire private officers or
Well,
the city?
we don't intend to construct the traffic. We hope not to construct, mess with the traffic, but we hope to have some officers. Like I said, we can bring some local officers on the scene. The traffic probably will flow, as usual. We don't have a permit to stop the traffic at all.
Officers from where? From where?
Officers from where? I was hoping that the city brought some officers, they made themselves visible, maybe parking in front of settlements instead of the school board. On the regular hours. We have patrolmen on regular hours. We're not asking anyone to get out unless we need them. I mean, that's what they're for. We're not going to ask for
Well, I think that realistically that you should know that if there was
300 chairs, that's your request.
Yes.
And the question is, will the chairs be taken care of? The attorney says there has to be a price. How do we determine what that price would be for the use of 30 tables, 300 chairs for 4 hours?
I think if I was trying to come up with a price, I would probably check with, you have some rental businesses that, rent things for weddings and other events where you can, I mean, I've actually rented tables and chairs myself. And probably I would check with them to find out what the range is on their cost and use that as a basis for saying that is a reasonable cost for for charging for the use of city assets.
And we'll have to charge the price that they're charged?
It would have to be within the range, I would say. In other words, I mean, I'm not in that business. It's so hard for me to say how to value it. I mean, it's a matter of charging, or it's a matter of the city saying this is our event. And then the charging doesn't become an issue. But then you take on a lot of other issues when it becomes your event.
No, we don't want to have an event. I was strictly thinking in terms of,
Well, if I can be some assistance to the city on that charge question to Mr. Hamilton, we have a check with Taylor Rental in Monroe. It's about $650 for what we're asking for their charge. $650. I have looked into it. We have priced the table, 30 tables and 300 chairs. They're asking about roughly $650.
I don't want anybody to think that I'm against this affair, but as Chief Administrative and Chief Executive Officer of the city, I don't think that the city wants to get into renting tables and chairs. I just really don't think you want to get it. We want to, as manager of the city's property, I don't think that that's a thing that we want to get into doing. If we had an abundance of folding tables which could be used outdoors, it would be a different situation to some extent, but I just don't think that as a government we want to get into start renting our stuff out. That's just my input, but you will make the decision as it relates to this.
Given what Mr. Lawrence has said, Reverend Bradford, and you already have the date set for the event, and we already know what our restrictions are, and if the city sponsors the event, then we assume responsibility as well as liability for it. And in doing something of that magnitude, I think we need the appropriate time to do that, but you already have a date set, so what about the local churches that are coordinating with you? Will they loan chairs to you?
I have looked at this, at some aspect of Mrs. Ollie, and I hadn't been successful so far. I mean, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. I mean, you know, I'm here now. Well, I'll be tomorrow, I don't know, but I'm going to do what I have to do. And I can respect it, because I think if the city came involved, you'll probably need more time. Maybe next year. We can talk it over and look, something to look into. I'm not stuck there, and I can appreciate Mr. Long's effort and the city council, you know, your effort. And I hear what you're saying. I hear it clear. It's not, you know, it's clear, but I want to thank Mr. Long, like I said, and I want to thank the city council at least for considering hearing me out. And I'll leave with this. I hope that you all may make a personal contribution. We need $650. And, you know, that's $125 a piece. If you choose, we're open, okay? And everybody have a good day. Again, I appreciate you, Mr. Long.
Mr. Bradford, Reverend Bradford, you mentioned something, and one item that might have made the Board of Alderpersons feel more comfortable and that probably would have gotten more participation, and this is not a reprimand, but whenever we get involved in something, we're usually involved in it from the very beginning.
Understand.
And if you decide to do this next year, and not that this is commitment that we will participate, but if you will come to us at the very beginning and let us be involved in it, and some of these hurdles that we're talking about now can possibly be eliminated, lowered, or negotiated around. I think it's an excellent affair. I know the town of Richwood does a soul food festival. Rayville does, not Rayville, but Lake Providence, and they have a fantastic one. So it's not that we're against the concept, but we have to be sure that we tread in waters that we know the depth of what we're doing. I encourage you to, and I wish you much success.
I understand clearly, Mayor, what you're saying. I think for the city, because it may be something I don't see, and I don't want to put the city to any obligation, any liability. I can respect that.
I appreciate you, sir.
But again, I'll make that request for those contributions. I'm gonna leave a couple of numbers, you don't mind.
Sure.
Maybe someone will help us, because we're not gonna stop.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm determined.
One other thing I would suggest, did you talk to the Tourism Commission? The Tourism Commission, as you planned this?
We talked about, they gave us some leeway on next year. We kind of got to get started.
Okay,
They gave us,
okay.
you know, it's a learning progress.
Okay.
We're learning. This is our first time out, you know.
And we
Believe me, I have learned a lot.
okay. We'd like to work with you.
Okay, and we'll be looking forward. I can just share those numbers with the citizens, they don't mind.
All right.
791-7620, 614-2850, 239-4733. And thank you, and I hope you all can attend the Soul Food
Okay.
Fest. I
Would
think
you,
the food will be
and
delicious.
before you leave, if you would give those numbers to one of our staff folks, so if people call our office, we'll be able to give them to them at that time?
I sure will.
We
Sure
appreciate
will.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Is there any other citizens who'd like to make a comment to the Mayor Board of Aldermen? If you'll come forward and identify yourself, you may speak to us.
To the mayor, I am Elmira Norwood. And I'm here to just to state a few statements on Unity Street. Unity Street have got kind of dangerous for us. And the reason I'm saying it's dangerous, if I'm standing here 78 years old, I have a handicapped daughter, 56-year-old, another elder lady next door, 96 years old. Up the street in front of me as well, there's another 80-some-year-old lady. So we are down there, and what have happened? We done had so much trouble. So now we are tired, we disgusted, we scared, and we ask FINA or some of them for help. They don't do it. They call the police on me up here at Gladly North. Well, I say, you know, what good is me paying my claim if I can't get one bill when I need it?
Let me just clarify. Ms. Norwood is here talking about Unity Street, which is off of Commerce, which was flooded this past week and has flooded several times over the years when there is heavy, horrific rains, and it is consistent. And I know I'm not eliminating you saying what you're saying, and it is dangerous. We have had to go in that street and bring people out in fire trucks and high-wheel vehicles because the water is so high. Crossing Commerce Street at the back of the houses on the south side, west side of that street is a major drainage ditch that starts somewhere down by Clark Lee Park on 139 and meanders through and enters into Stalking Head, or the pub ditch. When we have these horrific rains and the pub ditch is full, that water can't get into the pub ditch, and pub ditch is a term, if you've been around for a while, you know what the pub ditch is. The water can't get in there and it starts backing up. There are about 10 houses, 10, 12 houses on that street.
Right.
And those houses get water sometimes 3 or 4 feet in there. And it's at the point now where when it starts thundering and lightning, I'm afraid for them, and I don't live there because I know what can happen. But to get ahead of you, what we have done, and we met with the governor on yesterday. The governor was in Bastrop, the lieutenant governor, the general in charge of the National Guard, and several other state officials. Unity Street, Eden Drive, part of Commerce, and a couple other streets in Bastrop have consistently flooded. We've asked the governor to help us initiate the action to do what they call a buyout, to buy the property out because it has repetitively flooded and it's going to flood again. And we have asked him to help us in those actions to buy out those properties so that you can sell, the government will buy them, and then you can be moved to a different place. It means you'll be relocated because there is no solving that problem. We can't change Mother Nature. We can't stop that water we can't stop rain and that water that rises. We can't build a levee, and I can't imagine a levee in Bastrop around that. So the only thing to do is to remove you and people who are similarly situated from that environment. So that's our commitment to you, and the governor committed in the presence of,
Right.
I don't know who else was in the chief, other people were there. So that's what we're working on.
Thank you. But then too, there's that ditch from Commerce going back up. This warehouse,
Sure.
cause it's gonna affect all of us.
And-
That trees is down.
Right. And the
Yeah.
ditch is getting wider and wider and eating up your property as well.
Well, yeah,
It's
but
taking
I'm talking
property.
about from Tuesday night, they just blowed up
Sure,
trees laying
sure.
in that
Right,
ditch.
right.
And we know that Ike is on his way. So, here we go again.
Absolutely so.
Here we go again.
And there,
And I understand that that's not your problem.
It
That's
is.
God's
It is.
problem.
It-
That's rain. We can't help that.
Right.
But that don't keep us from not having to wait out nowhere to stay.
right.
No, you know, it's sad. Before you get through, you tear up the carpet 'cause you done replaced it 2 or 3 times. You put down towel. Well, here it comes. You call you think done dried. You step in it, scorching it up.
Right.
It is, you know.
It's dangerous.
And I just want to let
Yeah,
y'all,
right.
you know, comment.
And the record is there, and not only is it dangerous from the flood perspective, we have a major lift station there, Mr. Fontenot, with Mr. Fontenot is with Veolia Water, there's a major lift station there, and when the flooding happens, then that puts all kinds of other stuff in the water, in the houses,
That's true.
and all the rest of that, so
That's true.
it's
Oh,
unsanitary, right,
I had to rush my
yeah,
daughter straight. Well, we got her to Morehouse General, but we had to rush her straight on to North St. Francis for surgery on account of the water.
right,
Lord bless my Lord, she taken out Tuesday evening, and yeah, she handicapped. We didn't have no way. She fell in the water again, so now she's sick again.
Oh,
So
wow.
you see where I stand.
we definitely do.
Do you see where I stand?
We definitely do. And that's why we've taken the actions to do that. With the Homeland Security Officer, Mr. James Martis, was in the room
Mhm.
along with Sheriff Tubbs. And as I said, the governor gave us instructions as to what the procedure should be to start the pro process.
So we, you know, no one, I called in, I called my
Yeah,
insurance.
right.
And FEMA too, but
Yeah.
I hadn't had no feedback yet.
Okay. And,
But
and,
I know
and
it takes time with everything going on.
it's
But
a
now,
difficult situation to be in too, as you just said. Ike is coming, and there's nothing
Ike is on his way.
that
hey.
we can do.
And
but-
we already sleep ready to roll on Thunderhead
Right.
Drive.
I totally
So,
understand.
I think I'm gonna try it. Well, my godson did try to get us a motel, Monday night, but they said they was all
All
full with the evacuees, you know.
Right.
So,
Our promise to you is we're working hard to alleviate the situation.
yes, sir,
Okay,
in that pump
okay.
station.
I appreciate it. Ms. Ware is here, and I wanted to, before Ms. Ware speaks, and Ms. Ware is in a unique situation. Ms. Ware lives on that street, and her husband is one of our employees, and he was out trying to help and save and work for other folks when his house was going under. Ms. Ware?
Good evening. About the tree that's in the ditch, right now, what I'm concerned about is dammed, it's got the ditch
Sure.
dammed off, that tree that ditch that
Right.
puff ditch you call
Right.
it. Those trees, if it don't get out of there before
The rain
this
comes.
weekend,
Sure.
it's gonna be a
It's gonna
bad
back it up
mess.
faster.
Yeah,
I see.
that's why, we know everybody got water now, so it's
Right.
not so much that, that needs to be prevented if
Okay.
you can.
Okay.
And, I think she was fixing to talk about that pump station down there by
Right.
us.
Right.
If the lights go off, it shuts off.
Right.
And, whoever, it's one person that works there,
Mhm.
come back and flip it back on.
Right.
And we have to call them, and it's a long time before they come. But what I'm saying, if you know you're in charge of something,
Right.
you should go to that area and make
Before-
sure that pump is working.
Absolutely.
Because when that pump is turned back on, it's just like somebody took a stopper out, the
And just
water.
sucks
Yeah.
over.
So, is it any way that you all could have something to make the pump come back on itself,
Right.
or?
and Mr. Joe Fontenot is here, who's the local manager. In fact, we had a meeting on this just the other day about putting it on a computerized system so that it would automatically recharge itself and monitor itself to make that happen. So and please don't think I'm trying to pacify you, because I don't believe in pacifying. I believe in doing something. So in answer to your question, yes. And in the meantime, Mr. Fontenot, I need you to be sure to have somebody to constantly monitor that station, be proactive on that. Okay? Thank you
Okay,
very
I
much.
appreciate
And
that.
is Mr. McKee still in
In the back.
we need to get, the National Guard is working with us in cutting the trees and debris and stuff. Since that's an immediate problem, we can handle that. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, ladies, for coming, and we appreciate you. Please keep in touch so we can keep you informed of the progress that we're making. Okay, thank you. Okay, all righty. And Ms. Underwood, Ms. Norwood's gonna do that. She definitely is. Come on up, sir. If you'll introduce yourself, and you may speak to this mayor and board of all the persons.
My name is Cal Adams. I'm pastor at Cherry Ridge Baptist Church. On behalf of some concerned citizens in our area, I come before this city council and you, Mayor, to ask the revocation of a license that has already been granted due to the fact that it does violate the state's obscenity laws. Now, that does apply to the business that I believe this past week received an occupancy license entitled, I believe the business name is The Red Door, which is known for its pornographic videos as well as other items. And I'm sure that you're well versed in the obscenity laws, Louisiana statute, Louisiana Law 14106, and I'll not read all of that in its entirety, but I would like to, I know Mr. Lawrence is also well familiar with that as well. There are a few rulings and statutes that I would like to also look at that I believe backs up the community's views that this is not a business that we want operating within the city of Bastrop. It's not a business that is good for our children. This business is locating in a residential area. Miss Olive, I believe it's even in your area, in your district. This is not something which, as a city, we should tolerate. Not only does it violate obscenity laws, it violates moral laws. So as a mayor and board of aldermen, I ask that you bear with me as I cite a few rulings as well as the law itself. In the State versus Amato of 1977, the law of Louisiana 14106 tells us that it is not unconstitutionally vague, and then the law itself deals in Section 2, letters A and B, and also Section 3A and B. Again, I will not read all of those. Each one of those deals with what obscenity is and what obscenity, and I'm sure, do you have your copies with you of the law itself?
Did we have?
I believe that was given to each of the aldermen.
I didn't see one, did you? Is it this? This is Parrish.
Was that just in our packets?
Then if you'll bear with me, I'll read those. The law of obscenity, Section 2, Section 2, letters A and B, say the participation, the crime of obscenity is the intentional participation or engagement in or management, operation, production, presentation, performance, promotion, exhibition, advertisement, sponsorship, electronic communication, or display of hardcore sexual conduct when the trier of fact determines that the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the conduct taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest, and the hardcore sexual conduct as specifically defined herein is presented in patently offensive way, and the conduct taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, and scientific value, that the hardcore, this is letter B, the hardcore sexual conduct is the public portrayal for its own sake and for ensuing the commercial gain of ultimate sex acts, normal or perverted, actual, simulated, or animated, whether between human beings, animals, or an animal and a human being, or masturbation, excretory functions, or lewd exposition, actual, simulated, or animated of the genitals, pubic hair, anus, vulva, or female breast nipples, or sadomastic abuse, meaning actual, simulated, or animated flagellation or torture upon by a person who is nude or clad in undergarments or in a costume that reveals pubic hair, anus, vulva, genitals, or female breast nipples, or in condition of being fettered, bound, or otherwise physically restrained, or on the part of one clothed, or actual, simulated, or animated touching, caressing, or fondling of other similar physical contact with pubic area, anus, female breast nipple covered or exposed, whether alone or between humans, animals, or human and an animal, or of the opposite sex, in an act of apparent sexual stimulation or gratification, or actual, simulated, or animated stimulation by a human genital organ by any device, whether or not the device is designed, manufactured, or marketed for such purpose. Again, in Section 3, letter B, obscene material is any tangible work or thing which the trier of fact determines that the average person applying contemporary community standards would find, taken as a whole, appeals to the prurient interest and which depicts or describes in a patently offensive way hardcore sexual conduct specifically outlined in paragraph 2 of this subsection, and the work or thing taken as a whole, it lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. The ruling from State versus Amato, of course, rules that our obscenity law is a legal law, that it is not unconstitutional, that it does not violate anyone's constitutional rights. I submit to this Board of Aldermen, by allowing this to go on in our community, violates my rights. I should not have to try to raise my children in a community where the community standards are so low that my children are subjected to this day in and day out. I will tell you, I live within the city of Bastrop. I do so because being a pastor in this city, I believe to legitimately pastor, I must live inside the city limits. I pay my city taxes. I pay higher taxes to live inside the city out of choice. As a city council, I believe it is our responsibility, I believe it's your responsibility to protect the citizens of this parish, of this city. The contemporary community standards referred to in the case of the State versus Video Joe Incorporated tells us that the contemporary community standards referred to do not constitute an element of the crime of obscenity, but are standards in which the trier of the fact must determine whether any particular material is obscene. That gives us, as a community, to employ our community standards. This is a business which is located inside the city limits. And again, let me say, in in Jefferson versus Bayou Landing Limited in 1976, the ruling of a permanent injunction against the adult bookstore and movie store was upheld because the material displayed and sold by the store fell within the definition of obscenity and amounted to hardcore sexual conduct. We are within our legal bounds by revoking their business license. It is my request to this committee that you please revoke that license, secure our children, and again, as a committee, protect our city. As a city council, protect our city.
Any questions?
I spoke with Pastor Adams earlier today, and I didn't realize the license had already been issued. And I went down to take a look at the place. No one was there. And I agree with you. I feel the same way, and I regret that it's operating in my district. And when I think about the school buses, now the school board office has moved down off of Nath Street, and the number of buses that will pass there every day, twice a day, and see the red door. I regret that personally, I really do. And I am compassionate. So I don't know what we can do. Mayor Hawkins, you gave us some information when we were in our meeting.
Could I address this, Mayor? Just for
Ms. Robinson? Yes.
Reverend Adams, I feel the same way you do, and Ms. Olive. I did bring a copy of the paperwork that the parish had done, the ordinances that they had done, so that we would have a copy. And I regret that this has happened, but as I'm not a native of Bastrop, but as far as I know, I don't think we've ever had this kind of business, so we were caught unawares, you might say. And I talked to District Attorney Jones, and you know that this is the same business that is in Monroe, and they had problems, and he did sue that store, the Red Door, and the Supreme Court, or whatever court it was, threw it out. If we could, I'd like for Mr. Lawrence to address that, because after I talked to him, the only thing that he said that he could arrest them on were the movies. And in a way, from what I understand, our hands are tied. The only other thing that I was told that we could do would be take license numbers. I don't know what we're supposed to do with them, or if somebody wanted to go down and pick it, but as I told another lady when she called me, she said that's only going to give them the notoriety and the advertisement and the publicity. We just have to pray, which I've been doing a lot of. I prayed when I found out that she had come and looked for the license, or applied for the, talked about the license, but she hadn't gotten one. And I just prayed every day that God would do something to stop it, so that we could come up with a way to not have this business. The only other thing is that maybe you could call the man that owns the building, and whenever his contract is up, I have no idea what kind of contract he had, but it's an atrocity for our city. I agree.
Ms. Robinson, may I submit that the moral standards of Monroe's community is not mirrored in the moral standards of Bastrop.
I realize.
And that gives us the legal grounds to implore our moral standards, our community standards. And if they sue the city of Bastrop, to be honest, and my personal feeling, that's one of the reasons I pay my taxes, to secure my children, to secure their safety. That's why I vote every time I have the opportunity to, because it's important for me to have my children grow up in a safe place where they can be taught what's right and what's wrong, without having someone impose themselves upon my children. My children go to public school. My child does. My little boy's not old enough. They go to public school. They're going to public school for the reason it's important for me to be a part of the community where I pastor. It's important for me as a leader to stand up for what is right. If this is not right, if you feel that this is right, then vote for it and stand behind it. If you do not feel this is right, then stand against it.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hamlin?
Brother Adam called me today, but before he called, one of my old friends, Judy Owens, called me all the way from Oak Grove about this. And when I talked with her, I was not aware that the license had already been issued. So, and I told her if it came up for a vote, that I would vote against it. And other council members, from the discussion this afternoon, other council members feel the same. But legally, the way it is now, I've been informed that there's nothing we can do about it. We can't deny it. Maybe we had I don't know the step, but everyone in here, when we talked about it in the meeting earlier, everyone was against it. But legally, from what we've been told, that we do not have the ground to deny them.
Even under the community standards?
Well, it's
We'll
it's
let
so
Ms.
complicated, I can't explain, but
Yeah.
based on what they sell, what they, and the condition that they're in, that's my understanding that we cannot.
Hold on, Mr. Lenore. We'll let our attorney speak to it in just a minute, but sir, we'll give you other individuals a chance to speak. If you'll introduce yourself, please. Yes, sir. If
I
you'll-
know each one of you.
But if you're,
Yeah.
but if you, for the record, if we're gonna put,
I'm Jim Wilson.
yes, sir.
I've been a businessman here for 38 years.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And if any of y'all wasn't here on this council, you'd be out here. You knew what was known, you'd be out here protesting this right here. I don't believe there's nobody in this city would vote for this business to be in this city. We don't want this business in this city. Why can't we go ahead and vote to revote it? And whatever comes up, we'll meet it head on. If it takes a lawsuit, we'll meet it, but you don't want it, I don't want it, why do we have to have it? You know, there's no law that says they're gonna push something like this on you. You know, it's been proven, you know, that we can do this, you know. We don't have to stand for something like that now. When everybody don't want it, why do we have to have it? Now, that's just, y'all agree, y'all don't want it, you won't find nobody in the city that wants it. I mean, we made a mistake, let's correct it, and let's go the other way.
Sir, if you'll step forward and identify yourself, and then we'll listen.
L.H. McCullough. My question is, who granted the license? Who's responsible for licensing this without notifying the community that it's about to happen? Is that the way we do it?
Yes, sir. Licensing is not
Who is responsible for the
I
license?
am. I take the blame, but as Chief Administrative and Executive Officer, I'm responsible. Our procedure whenever a business comes in to apply for a license, there's some inspections that have to take place as far as the building itself, and if it's a legal entity, and some other approvals that have to happen, and this business met the qualifications. The council was not aware of it because occupational licenses do not have to be approved by the Board of Alderpersons. There is a book, or there are state laws which allow different categories of businesses, whether they're service, whether they're mercantile, to exist. And this business met the criteria, so therefore they paid the fees, they made the application, and they were granted a license. We do not have in the ordinances in the city of Bastrop an ordinance which controls sexual-oriented businesses, commonly called SOBs.
Well, how do we get that?
Excuse me, but we don't have that in place at this time. We have been, since this has become an issue, researching and compiling. Mr. Lawrence and I have been working basically all day in gathering information. There's a packet of 64 pages that we received from a lawyer in Bastrop, Louisiana, who's the authority on this, on sexual-oriented businesses. And I was listening to everyone first before I made any comments. And we, in our finance committee meeting, this topic came up, and the council directed me and the attorney to come up with ordinances which regulate sexual-oriented businesses. Now, the ordinances that regulate sexual-oriented businesses do not eliminate them, because the Supreme Court, and Mr. Lawrence, if I'm getting too far, you might need, the Supreme Court has already ruled, and I appreciate what you said about the community standards and all. The Supreme Court has already ruled that businesses, sexual-oriented businesses, cannot be denied the right to exist in a community, but it does allow parameters, restrictions, prohibition, rules, and regulations which regulate them. And we have stacks of material that we are perusing or reviewing, and that will be presented to this Board of Alderpersons to do this. And as it relates to sexual-oriented businesses, this is minor compared to what can happen. There are adult motels, adult hotels, there are adult dance places, exotic escort services, massage parlors. So because this situation has developed, it has shown the need that we need to adopt this. And I might say this, and this is not negative. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed.
And,
Well, when we, and I expected, and I went to the Red Door today. I went to the Red Door to inform the owners that this topic would be discussed tonight, and that there was community upheaval, and I said, we're gonna have a packed courtroom tonight in protest for this. And I'm not sure, but I see about 10 or 12 people,
Well,
excuse me, please,
all right, go ahead.
who are here. And I think the way to control this business and any other undesirable business is for folks who don't want it not to patronize it. And if they don't get business, they are going to go away. Now, but my commitment to you and my response to you, Brother McCullough, on the licensing, as Chief Administrative Officer, using the same protocol we use for all applicants for businesses, we granted the license because they were a legal entity. Mr. Lawrence, I don't know if you want to come and speak to anything on that as well.
Before
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lawrence comes, let me reiterate something, and this is something that you said, this is something minor. This is not something minor.
I'm sorry.
This is something that
if I
affects
said something that was minor, sir, I didn't
everyone.
intend to that. This is not minor because we spent the whole day and several days on this. This is not minor.
This is something that affects every person in Morehouse Parish,
I totally agree.
every person in the city of Bastrop. In my opinion, this council's failing our community.
Okay.
Our elected officials are failing us. If we don't stand against it, then we stand for it. I implore you tonight, take a stand against it. If a lawsuit comes, let us deal with the lawsuit as it comes. Stand against it. Please, don't allow this into our community to warp the minds of our children. Stand on what you believe in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Lawrence?
I think a part of the reading that you heard sort of answers in great measure the question, because the obscenity law says that the trier of fact has to make a determination. Now, the question that I have is, do we know right now what it is that they have? I mean, sure, we may have heard what they had in Monroe or in some other place, but do we know? Because the obscenity law said that you violate that law if you have hardcore materials, which I guess are distinguished from softcore materials, which I guess are legal. So it's a question of what are they selling, and does it fit within the definition of obscenity? And the only, I guess, party that can answer that question is a court, because that's exactly what the law says. It says a trier of fact will make that decision. The other thing is, you heard the part about contemporary community standards, which means that's a floating definition depending on where you are. If you're in New Orleans, that means one thing. If you're here, that means another thing. And perhaps if you're in Monroe, it means something else. But those decisions are made by a court. And unless and until a court says that what's being done is obscene and therefore is illegal, you don't have the power to make that determination. You have the power to regulate, as the mayor has indicated, but you don't have the power to make the determination that what is happening or what may happen. You don't have a crystal ball that's telling you that there is going to be obscene materials there. And so all that you can do from a law enforcement standpoint is to check and monitor and see what it is that they're doing to be sure that there are no activities or materials or whatever that fit within the obscenity law.
Could I ask a question here?
Ms.
Mr. Lawrence?
Robinson, yes.
Could we sue them on the basis of changing our, I don't know how to put this, our standing, our community, our,
I think I understand your question.
I don't know what to say.
It sort of invokes another question, though, and that is, what law is your lawsuit based on? In other words, if you sue somebody and you say that they've done you wrong, or that they owe you something, or that you seek something from them, your lawsuit has to say, I'm entitled to what it is that I'm seeking because this law over here says that I have a right to it. And so my question is, if you were to file a lawsuit like that because, as you say, their coming here changes the community, what law are you going to point to that you're going to base your lawsuit on that keeps it from being thrown out of court almost as soon as you file it? I mean, that would be my question.
I guess what I'd say to you, Mr. Lawrence, is why we pay you big bucks
Yeah.
to come up with a reason why we could sue them.
And I think that the Supreme Court essentially has answered the question and continues to answer the question. And in this case, unless you can absolutely say that hardcore materials are on the premises and are being sold, or hardcore activity is being engaged in, it doesn't come within the purview of the obscenity law.
One of the things I did, as I mentioned, I visited the facility today, and I wanted to see, and I wanted to introduce myself and see, meet the owners and talk to them, and also get a feel for the facility that was there. Their opening, their official opening is tomorrow. I met the owner, one of the owners, the lady who applied for the license, and her brother-in-law, and they were doing some stocking there. And when I came in and introduced myself, she told me that 2 officers, plainclothes officers, had already been there. She also mentioned that our building inspection people who had to permit the building had been there as well. And we talked about her reception and the feelings of many people, some people in the community, the expressions that had been made to us about their existence. And my comment to her was, and what she told me about events that had happened, and I asked her where was she located, and she told me she had a facility in Swartz and one in West Monroe, and the reception that she had had in other communities, and legal actions or the procedures that had happened. And I told her that we would be having this meeting, and I mentioned to her that legally, based on the information that we have, she had a right to exist, but at the same time, and this was not a threat, but just information, that if she violated the law, that we would be responsible for executing the law as it is supposed to be executed. And I said that, you know, who comes in, how do you control who comes in and whatever. She said that they check ID for everybody who comes into the building. They don't let anybody who's underage come into the facility. And she talked about other parts of the building and all. So the individuals who are there are fully aware that we are going to carry out our legal responsibilities, our legal responsibilities. And that's basically where we are right now. And that I told her too that we were in the process, since this business had come here and we had a similar situation, the tattoo parlor came, that we were going to be adopting regulations and rules as it related to sexual-oriented businesses. She did tell me that when she ever located in places, she always tried to be more than significant distances from churches and other impacted businesses. She mentioned that she had a situation in Monroe that when she located there, she was not aware that there was a church around the corner, but she's been at that place for some period of time as well. So the person who's there is aware of their business, and if you've been down there, when I went in, I was just interested in seeing if I could see anything from the outside which indicated what kind of business it was. Other than the name red door on the portable sign out there. There was nothing else to indicate it. The windows along the front, with the exception of the front door, is painted completely black. She said that she does not advertise. So these are items that made me feel more comfortable in knowing that if somebody went there, they would go in there because they knew what they were going for. And I know that there's nothing I can say that's going to make people feel any better, but I want you to know that we are doing our due diligence in dealing with this situation. Mr. Lawrence, any other comments?
No other comments at this time.
Okay, Brother Adams.
I did have a few comments. You did visit the facility?
Yes, sir.
Did she check your ID?
No, sir.
Then she's not checking IDs for everyone that comes in.
They're not open yet. And the first thing that she told me is, we're not open for business. I said, I'm Clarence Hawkins, I'm mayor in the city of Bastrop, and I gave her a business card.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But if she didn't check, I can print a business card on my computer.
Okay. She didn't check my ID.
If she doesn't check IDs for everyone that comes in, she's not checking IDs.
Okay.
Did you see anything, according to someone that I had to look into the business myself? Did you see anything that resembled a male organ?
Yes, sir.
Then that violates the obscenity law, any actual or simulated or animated stimulation of a human genital organ. And that is a simulated human genital organ. That violates the letter of the law of obscenity. Please act upon this.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? And we appreciate you for coming. This supports the statements that I made to her, that there was large outcry from the public as it relates to this business. So we do appreciate you coming. Any comments from our council people, Board of Alderpersons? Mr. Wilson, please.
You said you didn't have any response. I found out Tuesday of this week. We had a few people Wednesday night found out at church. The rest of the people don't know. As soon as they find out, you'll get plenty of response, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And the people, like I said, I don't believe nobody wants to hear it, but I don't think you want to hear it. And if we've got any legal right, we can get rid of it. Let's do it, because you're going to have trouble down the road. They've had trouble everywhere they've been.
I see. Thank you, sir, very much. I appreciate it. Brother McCullough, another comment? Please. Yes, sir.
It seems to me, though, that anything this important to our community ought to be in the paper somewhere. Have any of you read the paper and announced that this was going to be discussed? I heard about it this afternoon. I didn't have any idea what was going on.
Well, in fact, nobody had asked to be on the agenda to discuss this, and this item came up on our agenda under citizens' comments. No one had placed this item on the agenda.
Okay.
I make it a public, and it's historically, those of you who attend our meetings, we have a slot for citizens' comments because we always want people to be able to come in and not say, you're not on the agenda.
Yeah.
So this was not
Well,
something.
I appreciate
Brother Adams
that.
came to see me yesterday, but we were not placed on the agenda, right? Right.
Well, see, I guess that he was the only one who heard about it. I thought you had a reporter from the paper that attended these meetings.
That's something that they do. Sometimes
You don't ever
they
have
do.
that?
He was here, Wes was here, right?
Yes, he was here.
Well, it looks like that would have been an item in the paper so that if, I mean, after the fact, I mean, you know, somehow or another, we need to be informed before that time. And I'm wondering, where are we gonna draw a line? I mean, what is it that we will not turn down on? Is there anything?
And you know,
I understand there's a lot of money made in prostitution. Are we gonna open a house in Bastrop like that?
But prostitution is illegal, though, isn't it, Pastor?
I don't know,
I think it is.
all right? But
my-
I understand that there's
yeah.
places that you can go and never been there, but.
Yeah.
and
But
See,
I guess.
I think that somehow or another we've dropped the ball.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it makes me worried about what may happen in the future.
Yes, sir.
If this goes by, and I guarantee you that there wasn't 25 people
Right.
that knew about it.
Yes, sir.
but I think we'll noise it abroad,
Yes, sir.
all right?
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. Yes, sir. Brother Adams?
Since we skipped over item 16, which was any other business properly brought before the mayor and board of aldermen, I ask this board to consider that as an item of business tonight. Just to vote yes or no on whether you would support, for the record, whether you would support the revocation of this business's license. I bring that before the board, asking it to be a matter of business.
Let's do one thing here. Okay. Is there a motion from a member of the Board of Alderpersons to bring that as an item to be voted upon?
I make a
Mayor, would we
motion.
not have to expand the agenda?
Well,
I think it-
I don't know if y'all got notice of it, but the law just changed.
Okay.
Now has to be a unanimous vote to add people into the agenda.
okay, let's skip down to expanding the agenda first. Can I have a motion to expand the agenda on the items listed on our agenda in addition to the item that is being presented to us for consideration of revocation of a license?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Robinson makes the motion.
I'll second that
Mr.
motion.
Gordon seconds the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'm going to take that out of order since this is the pressing issue. Is there a motion from a member of the Board of Alderpersons to revoke the license to the Red Door as a business operating in the city of Bastrop?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Robinson makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Gordon seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of revoking the license, please say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Yes.
She hadn't called a roll yet.
Yes.
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 5-0.
5-0.
5-0. Okay, the motion passes. Mr. Lawrence? Would you come to the microphone and please be on the record for what you're saying?
I'll say this, as a person of faith, I think that was the admirable thing to do, but legally, I can't tell you what's going to happen next, quite frankly. And I don't know that we're on safe ground. And I would rather be vague and not specific in an open meeting, because if something ends up happening down the line, I don't want my words to be used against the institution. So.
Well, since you said it was a matter of faith, I'm gonna put my faith in God.
I need to consult with the attorney for just a minute, please. I'm asking the attorney for an interpretation on the process. I'm going to go on with another item, and I'm reserving the right to come back to that item. The expanded agenda is resolution number 08-1252, resolution endorsement for the Toyota of Bastrop to participate in the enterprise zone. This, Kay, you want to come and speak on this briefly?
Sorry, I left some of the notes at CG.
Can you speak louder, please?
In working with the Toyota, the new dealership, Toyota of Bastrop, which I think they officially applied for that under CG Group LLC. Is that correct? Is that, Jessica? help me a little bit here. Is that CG Group LLC?
You have an item in your packet, I believe, on that. This is the new Toyota dealership out on East Madison, and what we're doing is we need to adopt a resolution that needs to be sent to the state for that business to be included in the enterprise zone. Is that basically right?
Correct. That business has applied for enterprise zone credits. The state, or the state agency, which is Louisiana Economic Development, through their business incentive program, has written a letter, and it was sent to the police jury. The policy of the state now is they send that to one person in that community, one entity, public entity in that community, and then it comes down and passes through the community. In order to make sure that they receive their enterprise zone credits, I'd like for the city to also make a resolution on that to provide them with enterprise zone credits. They get exemption from some of their building materials as they're expanding this, whatever that the state will allow them to have. And they will get job credits for new employee hires. And so they will be eligible for some state incentive programs. And as I said, this will be as approved by the state of Louisiana, but it's your resolution that you're supporting this. They are going to make a significant contribution to this community in building a larger Toyota dealership. There are not many incentives that we can offer a retail type establishment, and this is one of those that we can offer to that company to help them defray the cost of building a new building, which is extremely expensive and really does a lot to enhance our community when companies build these new nice facilities in our community. So I'm requesting that the city of Bastrop adopt a resolution supporting their application for enterprise zone credits.
And this resolution and application for enterprise zone credit is nothing that is unusual for us, and nothing that is unusual for businesses to apply for. We've done it with International Paper and several other companies when they are going through expansions in businesses or growth and things of that nature. So I would appreciate a motion to adopt resolution number 08-1252.
Mayor Hawkins,
Mr.
I make a
Gordon.
motion we adopt resolution 08-1252.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is jointly seconded by Ms. Robinson and Ms. Olive. Is there any other discussion? All you in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed should say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Excuse me just a moment. I had to get clarification on something and based on charter provisions. And before I make my statement on my actions, one of the things that I did when I took office was to uphold the laws of the United States of America, the laws of the state of Louisiana, and the ordinances of the city of Bastrop. I took an oath to do that. Whether I agree with the laws or not, I took an oath, and I take my oath seriously. I have feelings and values and opinions about a lot of things that I've had to do in the 19 years that I've been here. Many of them were things that I supported, and many of things that I was against. But I take my oath extremely seriously, just as you do. And positions that I've taken have not been popular. But I made a promise to myself when I ran for mayor in 1989 that when I got to the point that I had to compromise my integrity for political expediency, that I was not going to do it. Many of you know that there's an election that will be taking place next year, and I plan to offer myself for mayor again. And I have to, well, if I do this, am I going to be reelected? But if I don't do it, am I going to be able to sleep at night? And because of my value system, my oath, I'm going on record as vetoing the actions that this board took in revoking that license, because we don't, based on advice of our legal counsel, have the right to revoke the license and deny the existence of that building. So I will sign the necessary documents. We have to first draft the ordinance revoking the license, but I will sign that. And at the same time, I'm telling you as a Board of Alderpersons, you have the right to override my veto with the 2/3 vote of this body. So, so if you want to override my veto, all you have to do is someone make a motion to override the veto of the mayor, and we will take a vote on that, and if you override it, then what you did was legal. But I have to do, just as you did what you had to do, what you thought was the appropriate thing, I have to do what I think is the appropriate thing as Chief Administrative Officer, looking at the whole picture and the welfare of, and the policies and procedures of the city of Bastrop. So let the record show that I'm vetoing the actions of the council in revoking the licenses on the red door. Now, if the floor is open, if you decide that someone wants to make a motion to override my veto. Mr. Gordon.
I'd like to consult with Mr. Lawrence, please.
Yes, sir. That's the enterprise zone thing, I believe. Do if that's what they choose.
Well, yes, sir. The city charter gives you an absolute right to be able to veto any ordinance or resolution or other action that is taken by the Board of Alderpersons. The Board of Alderpersons then have a right to come back and override your veto. The charter says that the override vote has to be by 2/3 vote. Since all 5 of you are here tonight, that means at least 4 of the 5 have to vote in favor, because 2/3 is 66 2/3%. And you don't get there with just 3. You got to have 4. And so that is what it is that you would do. And by the way, I've had a chance to confer off the record with the Board of Alderpersons about at least what my advice is, or my position is on the issue.
So if they want to override the veto, someone would need to make a motion?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Gordon, do you want me to speak to the issue that you and I talked about?
That'd be fine.
There was a question, I guess, it's a procedural question that deals with timing. When would an act to take act, if there was a desire to override the veto, when would that have to happen? The answer is the city charter doesn't speak to the timing of that. Also, there was the question about whether or not there should be, I guess, additional legal advice obtained from the state on this entire issue, and whether or not, in light of the need for obtaining that advice, that would be a basis for not taking any action right now on an attempt to override the veto. I think I'm stating the things that I heard. Those are the issues that are sort of on the table that I discussed with members of the Board of Alderpersons.
One other question. If my veto is overwritten, then the revocation would need to take place immediately?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me also clear up, Mayor, I don't know that Doug indicated it. I would like to engage Mr. Lawrence in getting an opinion from the Attorney General's office out of Baton Rouge on related on this related, to this matter.
You mean that on whether or not we,
Not-
can- on whether we can revoke the license, or?
No,
On the timing of the veto?
on the timing of the veto and the process on the veto.
I have an additional request in light of that. The Attorney General's office always wants the body that's requesting the opinion
Right.
to
To
pass a resolution to authorize me to make that request. And so I would ask you to make that motion, if you will, to authorize me to do that if that is your desire, and I will ask for expedited consideration.
Okay,
of the issue.
let's clarify what we're asking the AG for.
My understanding is it deals solely with the matter of the timing of a vote to override the mayor's veto. Y'all tell me if that's incorrect.
What's the window that it has to be done in?
Yes.
Okay. Whether within 30 days, 5 days, 10 days, is that,
Yes, sir.
this charter doesn't speak to that.
City charter, I just looked at it, doesn't speak to a time limit.
So if that means if the council is going to pass a resolution asking for a AG's opinion, then the revocation would not take place and the
That's
business
correct.
would operate.
The revocation would not take place unless and until an override vote occurs. I mean, that's chronologically, that's how it would work out.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt a resolution asking for an Attorney General's opinion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Mr. Gordon makes the motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. Robinson seconds Mr. Gordon's motion. Is there any discussion? If you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If you oppose, say no. The ayes have it. Is there any other action to be taken on this discussion of the read door by the Board of Alderpersons? Okay. Okay, staff, I need you to help me because I'm off agenda. Oh, yes, sir. When you're gonna ask for the expedited opinion, and as soon as you get it, you will let the board know, and you will need to reassemble, I guess, well, you will need to reassemble anyway.
And the other thing I will do is to look to see if there's an existing opinion right now. And I'll do both and get back to you.
Okay, staff, help me. Where are we?
We're on the other business, Mayor.
Right. Now, I know the one thing you had was the matter about calling for Bastrop.
Okay, we did that. Okay, we've done citizens' comments, we've expanded the agenda. Ms. Goldman, have I taken care of everything? Okay. One public notice, the city of Bastrop will be hosting a public forum for the city marshal and city judge candidates in the City Hall courtroom. The forum can be seen on Southern Link Bulletin Board Channel number 7, and the city marshal forum will be Thursday, the 18th. That's a week from tonight, isn't it? At 6:30. And the city judges forum will be Monday, September 25th. We're still requesting, we don't have questions from all of the board members yet. If you have questions that you would like to submit for consideration for the forum, please do that as soon as possible. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Mayor, wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have some other business.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I've been speaking with some personnel in reference to the cemeteries.
Yes, sir.
We have a concern about plants being placed at grave sites,
Yes, sir.
and they're kind of getting out of hand. They also slows the worker down as far as taking care of the cemetery, keeping it clean. And I think it's already required that they're not supposed to have plants out there in the ground. And I would like to make a motion that if they're gonna put plants in the ground, that if they're gonna have plants out there, they should be in a pot. on that site, because those plants grow and they kind of grow uncontrollable and infringe in other areas, in other plots. Plus, it slows the workers down when they're trying to clean it up. And the reason I bring it up now, because this is a good time for them to move them, if they want to move them while the ground is soft, winter time coming around, and by next spring it won't look so bad. The ground will have fell and everything.
Okay. Now, are we saying that in the future, in-ground plants will no longer be tolerated, or do we need to? Are you saying we need to remove the ones that?
I'm saying we need to remove the ones that existing out there now. Do you go out there and look?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I know that, you know, somebody might plant a small plant at the headstone of their family member, and when it's little and cute, it's very attractive. But when it grows, it starts lifting up headstones, and then it starts protruding over into other plots as well. And my question would be, can we retroactively remove plants that have already been planted?
I think that there's some things that are available to the city, I mean, in light of the fact that it's protruding over on other people's lots.
If they're, okay.
I mean, I think that there's some things that can be done to address that, even retroactively.
Okay. Would we need to do an ordinance or just create a policy?
Probably create a policy or something that I would like to look at and think on, but I'm sure that there's something that we can do.
Okay. Mr. Hamlin?
When you said making your statement, are you saying that they can have them now, provided that they don't protrude over?
Oh, no, that's not what I meant.
Okay, all right.
I just
Very good.
noticed that was
The grounds.
part of the problem, that they're protruding over on the other people's lots.
That's the grounds to justify.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
Mr. Lenore?
Did we ever check the ordinance on that, like this came up a few years ago concerning plants in the cemetery? See if we have anything on records, maybe something over there, if you will.
There are some regulations I know as it relates to Adams Cemetery and no headstones, but that was violated in the existing sections, and we've made it a policy that in the new sections, as we open them up, only flat headstones will be allowed to be there rather than vertical above ground headstones, vaults, and all other things that's put out there.
You do have an ordinance on it. It doesn't seem as though the ordinance, it talks about plants, but it just doesn't go directly to the point that we're talking about right now. It seems to, I'm trying to understand this one.
Why don't we do that then? Since there is an ordinance already, would you review that to amend that ordinance to be in line with what Mr. Hamlin is speaking of?
7-7.
Okay, Mr. Hamlin, you're suggesting too that bushes, shrubberies, trees that are there be removed?
Yes, sir.
Not to do that authorizes planting of plants at the headstone. It talks about other common areas, and it talks about provided that the roots don't protrude and actually go over into the plot and into the grave. So they have this thing answered already based on what they have on the book.
Okay.
Because there's no authorization, you put pots out there, there's no authorization to plant things in the ground right at the grave.
Okay. Would you review and advise?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Hamlin,
Thank you, sir.
anything else?
No, sir.
Ms. Olive?
I'd like to ask that we have a little more dialogue with Homeland Security